The history of the WWE is littered with the wreckage of underutilized gimmicks, underrated superstars, and tragically short careers. Likewise, the video game market has become increasingly overcrowded, with annual installments in the WWE series meaning heaps and heaps of rookie wrestlers and previously overlooked superstars and now finding themselves shoved into this interactive realm in order to feed gamers' insatiable desire for more content. Yet, even with the weighty demands of the gaming public and the treasure trove of forgotten talent in WWE's back catalogue, developers of WWE video games seem happy to offer up the same characters over and over again. Should we look at some that didn't make it in? We're talking about WWE games here, so shut up about Legends of Wrestling. I know it exists, okay? God. I'm Ben from What Culture, and here are 10 WWE superstars who never made it into a WWE video game. Number 10. Giant Gonzales. Right, so Giant Gonzales was the tallest professional wrestler in history. The monster was billed at 8 foot, but he was actually closer to 7'7" in real life, and he wore a bodysuit with airbrushed muscles and tufts of hair on it, which is fine. How does that not find its way into a video game during the early 90s? It seems his absence from video game lore is due to poor timing, as his incredibly short tenure in the company never lent itself to lining up with their game release schedule. The closest one Gonzales was in contention for was Rage in the Cage, which remains one of the best wrestling games of all time. Fight me. Number 9. The Soul Patrol. Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson. Being the first African-American tag team to win the championships should put even the most mediocre pairing into consideration for video game immortality, but the Soul Patrol was anything but mediocre. Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson were as dynamic as they were charismatic, so it's weird that none of the WWE video game properties have brought them back into the fold as playable legends. Johnson at least deserves a nod as the father of one of the most iconic figures in all of sports entertainment, and you have to think Rock might do his dad a favor at some point and make it happen. Go on, give it a go. Number 8. Mordecai/Kevin Thorne. Despite both of his over-the-top gimmicks easily lending themselves to the cartoonish video game universe, Kevin Furtick has never been featured in a video game. Maybe it's because both of Furtick's gimmicks involved supernatural stuff that had largely gone out of fashion by the time he found his way onto SmackDown in 2004, or maybe it was just a lack of foresight by WWE creative. As tends to be the case with so many of these nifty characters that got left out of the video game realm, his absence was almost definitely due to his lack of television exposure. Number 7. Deuce and Domino. Billed as being from the other side of the tracks, the tag team of Deuce and Domino, along with their rollerblading valet Sherry Pie, are one of the most underrated pairings of recent history. Not only were both superstars incredibly solid in the ring, but they had one of the last full-on gimmicks in the industry. The greaser shtick wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but they had plenty of fans. Despite becoming tag team champions just 4 months into their tenure, the duo was never really elevated to the top of the pile, and there was no good reason for them to have been left out of SmackDown vs. Raw 2008, which was released while they were still at the height of their popularity. Number 6. Bull Nakano. Bull Nakano began her career in Japan but spent a couple of years with the WWE in the mid-90s, which happened to be during the first revitalization of the women's division. You aren't going to find Bull doing photo shoots for a bikini calendar or using her feminine wiles to get what she wanted. No, she would just pile drive you to get what she wants. Her most famous feud was a back-and-forth battle for the women's championship with Alundra Blaze. Nakano was an imposing figure and a natural heel, but more than that, she was able to drag some impressive matches out of the usually quite mediocre Blaze. So it's a sad day when WWE announced Blaze as a downloadable option for WWE 2K16, but made no mention of her greatest adversary. Number 5. Zac Gowen. Zac Gowen's whole gimmick was based around being the ultimate underdog who was pulled right from the crowd and given a chance to show his stuff inside a WWE ring. The fact that Gowen didn't even make it a year in the company says everything you need to know about how McMahon and the creative team perceived him. He was an oddity, a novelty act, a joke. When the novelty wore off, he was released from his contract, but they really missed an opportunity in not including Gowen in SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, the best wrestling game ever made, yes. After all, what's better as a fan than being put on the official WWE roster? Being put on the roster of a WWE video game. Number 4. Bob Backlund. Do you remember when Bob Backlund came back to the WWE to feud with Bret Hart and won the WWE Championship at Survivor Series? Yeah, neither did WWE immediately afterwards. Though he could have reasonably shown up in 1994's WWF Raw and 1995's WWF WrestleMania the arcade game, both of which were distributed on multiple platforms, Backlund was never immortalized in pixels. To add salt to the wound, Doink the Clown was made a playable character in the WrestleMania WrestleMania game, despite not actually competing in that year's WrestleMania, or the next year's WrestleMania for that matter. Basically, why the hell did Doink make the cut, but not a legend like Bob Backlund? Number 3. Dynamite Kid. One of the most underrated high flyers of his generation, Dynamite Kid was never able to earn the same kind of marketability as his tag partner, Davey Boy Smith. That's especially evident in the WWE video game universe, where the British Bulldog has shown up in multiple games, yet decades after his WWE debut, Dynamite Kid has yet to show up in one. In terms of moveset alone, there wasn't a more dynamic guy during the mid to late 80s, which may have made him a little hard to program in those early days, where Hulk Hogan's 5 moves of doom ruled supreme on the Nintendo. But considering how far ahead of the time Dynamite Kid was, he could still be one of the most enjoyable characters to play in a modern video game. Number 2. Marty Jannetty or The Rockers. There are plenty of people who would disagree with including Marty Jannetty in a WWE video game on his own, and those people wouldn't be wrong. Let's face it, there's one reason for Jannetty to be inserted as a legend, and it's only if he's playable alongside Rockers-era Shawn Michaels. But isn't that enough of a valid reason to put him into the mix? It's weird that the Rockers were never considered for classic WWE games like WrestleFest, especially considering that both Demolition and the Legion of Doom were featured in the game. Surely there was room for a smaller duo among the big boys. Number 1. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. By early 1987, Mr. Wonderful had concluded a big money run with Hogan over the WWE Championship, during which Orndorff worked through a serious arm injury. The pain caused him to take on a considerably smaller schedule in the spring of '87, but he was working non-televised events during this time. But given the height and profile of his Hogan work, isn't it odd that we've never seen him in a WWE game? He once beat up Vader backstage in flip-flops, for Christ's sake. You couldn't have put the now Hall of Famer in as a legend at some point? Come on, guys. And there's always next year.
The killer in you is the power in me. Pleased to meet you, so good to see. The killer in you will keep me alive. Back to back, self-sacrifice.
So, thanks for watching. Please feel free to click on any of these things around my head, or something terrible might happen to the dog. Too sweet me, bro. Traitor. Traitor.